Well, folks, for the first time in my life, I think I can say I might be proud of the messaging coming from the American right. For the first time, I think that I can think of, the right is not being reactionary. They're not just bouncing off of whatever the left wants to talk about. They are creating their own narratives, and I think it's really standing out this week because the right has the opportunity, which this is the easy thing if you're like a right-wing pundit to do, is to just go play defense and try and debunk the typical Democrat talking points. We've had not one but two mass shootings in the last week, after not having any mass shootings for a very long time. It's very interesting how that happens. We're getting close to the election. Kamala's not polling well at all. And it's like all of a sudden, two mass shooters in the same week. Oh, what are the odds? It's a little suspicious. And so normally, if that happened, you would expect, the right's going to spend, a couple weeks playing defense, talking about, why gun control doesn't work and why, well, we only need a little gun control. Maybe only universal background checks or something like that, or maybe we just need, red flag laws, and that would have stopped all these shootings and blah blah blah. Oh, we need a 24-day waiting period for buying a gun, and then we need background checks for buying ammo. There's been none of that. The right has completely ignored these two shootings for the most part, other than making fun of the shooter in Georgia, saying that he was motivated by his trans identity, which has not been proven. But again, to the extent that they talked about it at all, and when I say they, I mean like the zeitgeist. I mean people in general. They're going on offense. They're not playing defense, which is what I like to see. That's the attitude of a winning movement. That's the attitude of people who actually have a chance of perhaps one day, maybe if we're lucky, getting something done, something positive. It's the kind of thing that as a voter, it gives me some hope. I like to see a political movement that actually, stands for something and seems passionate and wants to fight for their beliefs, and they're not going to back down when those beliefs become difficult. When perhaps, the news cycle seems to shift in the other side's direction. You need to be prepared for that. You need to be steadfast in your beliefs. And that's what we like to see. So not only has the right mostly not really paid much attention to these two shootings because, frankly, they shouldn't feel bad about it. Not their fault. We have nothing to be ashamed of as people who did not shoot people. The only two people who have anything to be ashamed of are the people themselves. Or in the case of that shooter in Georgia, it seems like, maybe the dad bears some responsibility because he seemed to know that his son was unstable and he gave him access to a gun. So anyway, what has the right been focused on? If they're not focused on that, if they're not playing defense, if they're not trying to, argue against gun control or argue for only limited gun control, well, interestingly enough, they've been focused on immigration of all things. Something that gets relatively very little focus in America, considering how disproportionately it affects the average American compared to almost any other issue. There is really nothing that comes close to the immigration issue that affects people in this country. Now, not every community in America is affected by immigration, but the ones that are, they're affected severely. It radically changes them. And this has always been the case, going back to America's founding. We've had waves and waves of ethnicities moving into this country. In every wave, it's sort of a different group of ethnicities. And so this week, the focus has been on particularly Haitian migration to a small town by the name of Springfield in Ohio, where now it appears upwards of 25% of the population are Haitian migrants who were brought into that town in the last couple of years by the Biden administration. And the messaging coming from the online right has been pretty uniform. It's been pretty resolute. The narrative is you can't just airdrop people from around the world into American communities and expect that to go over well. People around the world have their own cultures, some of which are radically different from our own, as Haiti's is. In this case, Haiti has a radically different culture from the United States. All you have to do to learn that is just go to Haiti. It's pretty obvious. Some stats show that the average IQ in Haiti is below 70, which means that the average Haitian in the United States would be considered mentally disabled. Haiti is a culture of extreme scarcity. People there have lived in abject poverty for generations, going back centuries. And so one of the small traits of a culture like that, of that kind of a culture of extreme scarcity, is that if you see anything moving that's within your grasp, you grab it and you eat it. Because if you don't, you're going to go hungry later. You grab whatever you can and you make a meal of it. And apparently that's what Haitians in Springfield, Ohio are wont to do. They will snatch any animal that's unattended that they can get their hands on. They have picked the public parks clean of wildlife, and they trespass on their neighbors' lands to kidnap their pets and roast them for dinner, out in public, outdoors, of course. They're not even using kitchens. They're roasting them over an open fire, hanging them to dry from trees to make jerky. And this is not something that should be unexpected. This is what we should expect. This is their culture. It is rational for these people to act this way, given the environment in which they have existed for their entire lives. In the same way that it wouldn't be reasonable if you took an American and airdropped them, let's say, into Kabul. You wouldn't expect that person to instantly know all of the etiquette, the language, and the customs of the Taliban. No, instead, that person would be completely incompatible with that society. If you tried to live a normal American life in Kabul in 2024, you would be, by definition, a menace to society. Your very existence would offend the sensibilities of your neighbors. The way you dress, the things you eat, your opinions with regards to the roles of women in society. All of these things would differentiate you radically from your neighbors in Kabul if you were to just move there. And the same is true if one of them tried to move here, or if someone from Haiti tried to move here, or if someone from, let's say, a remote village in Siberia. There are all sorts of different cultures around the world. It's a big planet. Everyone has their own customs. And you know what? You don't have to accept that. You don't have to accept other people's customs in your society. That's why we have separate societies for separate people. It's so that people around the world can live the way that they want. And so, it is perfectly reasonable to object to injecting your own society with people who are incompatible. It's not like these 20,000 people who came from Haiti as refugees want to learn American customs or live an American way of life. They don't. Why would they? If you moved to Haiti, would you suddenly want to start eating dogs and cats? If you moved to China, would you suddenly want to eat bat soup and pangolins? If you moved to Kabul, would you suddenly want to take multiple wives and cover them from head to toe? Would you want to eat sitting down, legs crossed, or would you want to sit, at a normal Western dinner table? I mean, these are cultural differences. You're not going to destroy them. All you're going to do is cause chaos by trying to put all these things together and jumble them around, shake them up in a can. If 25% of the population of your town are people who are from a radically different civilization, that is going to cause chaos. That is going to destroy both of your societies. There will be a clash of civilizations. And so normal Americans will understand this. This is an intuitive idea. And so I think it's an inherently winning, it's a winning issue. And so I'm glad to see it become the topic of so much conversation, and more importantly, so many memes. AI has turbocharged the meme-making process. Things can just come out so quickly now. All the images of Trump protecting kittens from, Haitian mobs, or of Kamala Harris putting a cat into the oven. Those sorts of images stick in people's heads. They're visceral. They are absurd, of course, to a certain extent. But again, it's like a political cartoon. And so I think I feel more comfortable saying that I think that Trump is the favorite to win this election after this past week than I have been for the entirety of the cycle, regardless of the polls. Just because seeing the attitude of his supporters, seeing the failure of the media to control the narratives, the fact that Trump supporters are able to craft their own narratives, their own news cycles, that's something that we've needed in American politics for as long as I've been alive. Every presidential election cycle, the media determines what the issues are. The media determines what the news cycle's about. The media determines what the issues are. And so, typically, it's going to be something that puts the right wing on their back foot. It's going to be an issue that's negative for the right wing. And so the right is always playing defense. But now that people have finally broken out of the media narratives, now that the media has no control over that, now that narratives are forming more organically, news cycles are being driven by what's happening on a site like X, this is the first election cycle of X uncensored, other than arguably 2016. And remember, the heavy censorship on Twitter came as a result of the 2016 election. And so now we're seeing the power of Twitter unleashed. And I hope it changes American politics for the better moving forward. I hope that it rids us of media narratives once and for all. I want the issues of every election to be driven by actual voters, by real people, not by TV executives. Oh, in other news, though, before I go, there is going to be a presidential debate, speaking of the mainstream media, tomorrow on ABC, but I think it's being simulcast on all the other networks. I will watch that. I expect it to be quite entertaining, and it's going to be a big test for Kamala Harris. I think she needs to hit it out of the park. I think that anything less is going to be seen as a failure, at least by me, because she is now the one on her back foot. She's not doing well polling-wise, unless the polls are just substantially different than they were in 2020 and 2016. But if you can compare the polling numbers in 2024 to 2020 and 2016, Harris is not doing well at all. It's a disaster. And so she needs to come out of this debate having humiliated Trump, which I think is a very tall order for someone like her. Someone who's not good at thinking on her feet. Someone who doesn't have a strong charisma. She often can come across as harsh and unfriendly in sort of a less imposing version of Hillary Clinton. But anyway, I'll discuss all that after the debate. So with that said, I will see you folks back here then, which will be Wednesday.